Hi YouTube fam, welcome to Talking Crime. My name is Gina Marie Bova, and this is where I like to come to discuss solved and unsolved true crime cases, true crime facts and stats, and missing person cases that I don't feel have gotten enough attention from mainstream media. If you're interested in everything true crime, then you've definitely come to the right place, and I hope you will choose to subscribe to this channel. Also, if you click that little bell next to the subscribe button, YouTube will notify you whenever I upload new content. Quick warning before we get started, my videos are not for children, they're not for those with weak stomachs, and not for those who are easily triggered. I do not censor my language, and many of the details that I give and photos I show are graphic in nature, so viewer discretion is advised. Speaking of my non-censorship, I'm having a few problems with YouTube because of it. I was never told that I could not put it in the title of my videos, and therefore I was having a hell of a time getting a video uploaded. So this time I actually figured it out on my own, and we're trying this again. I have not censored my content. However, my titles apparently need to be much more censored as far as pictures and verbiage. So now that I know, hopefully things will be running a little bit smoother as far as me getting this shit up on time, because this time I actually had my work done on time for a change, and I still am late getting it up. So I am going to be working all day today and trying to get this up and going, and then I'm not going to give you guys time limits no more as far as when I'm going to be uploading, because even when I am on time, which is so very, very rare in my life, even then I'm late. So roll with me. I'm going to do my very best to get caught up. Love you guys. Dating can be really tricky. Not only are people busy with work, school, and family, but even with all the time in the world, for some, dating sucks. Sorry about the moving pillow. It's not possessed. I actually have a dog behind it. Anyways, back in the day, they had the newspaper ads and classified, which, for dating sites, as far as that's concerned, it was a lot slower back then. Now that there's the internet, though, it's a lot less time consuming as far as finding and seeing profiles and so forth. People bullshitted back then. They bullshit now. Okay. People, though, some will fake and lie about every single thing that they say. It happened back in the day. It happens now. But the fact that we can access people much quicker and in higher numbers means that the odds are higher that we're going to come across these fake profiles if we're in the dating scene as far as online. The people who lie and pretend somebody that they're not are called catfish. Being catfished could hurt one's feelings or pride, but it can also hurt your bank account and, most importantly, your well-being. Some people get conned out of their hard-earned money. Some for a few bucks. Others have their entire bank accounts wiped clean. The internet makes it more difficult to keep track of your child's safety as well. Unfortunately, children are naturally trusting and naive. They're naive to the evils in this world. They think that they know everything. After all, they learn from friends, video games, movies, and of course, Google and social media never lie. As parents, we want to trust our kids to do the right thing. But what if they honestly think that they are doing the right thing? Social media lets them talk to current and meet new peers. What's the harm in that? Well, catfishing. Sexual predators use the internet too. The perverts know how to get to our kids. It's easy as creating a profile that says that they're the age of the kid they're trying to be in contact with. They throw in some pictures of some random kid off the internet or their own kids, and poof, your child's newest online bestie has been created. So you check their phones, you make sure that they're talking to the appropriate people, you see only kids in their inbox, and you think, yep, they're safe. Meanwhile, some twisted fuck is grooming your kid. It's scary as hell to think about. The story I'm about to tell you is tragic and frightening all the way around. But please listen to it, especially if you have kids. But even if you don't, because this lesson can help you too. Everybody is online nowadays, but not everybody needs to be in danger. I'm going to try and tell this story without too much stuttering. Please bear with me as I give it a shot. So the story I'm about to tell you has some information online, but not a whole lot, unfortunately. It is fairly recent. It just happened in the day after Thanksgiving, November 25th of 2022. And even though they know who did it, and even though he's not going to be going to trial, explanation later, and the case is closed, it is still under investigation. Yeah, I don't get that either. But the police are citing the fact that it is still under investigation as the reason that they're not disclosing very many details to the public. And I usually don't like telling you guys stories about cases where I don't have all the answers for you. However, this time, I don't feel the case has gotten enough attention, and very little attention, actually. There's news blips here and there, nothing for like a month. But I think it's definitely a story that needs to be told. It's a story that hopefully saves somebody else's lives. Parents of children and teens need to hear this, although this may be an extreme example. Our kids are targeted far too often. And even more sad is that it can usually be avoided. I know it sounds weird, but even though there's not that much information on this case, I really have no idea where to begin. Everything about this story is so fucked up. I think I'm going to go ahead and start with the pervert pedophile and go from there. His name was Austin Lee Edwards, and he was 28 years old at the time of this incident. This incident happened on November 25th, 2022, so it's very recent. It was the day after Thanksgiving. About Austin Lee Edwards. I know that he had a habit of meeting women online. He had a longtime girlfriend, I guess 5 years, that they were in love, but they had never met in person. She lived in California, him in Virginia. I know that he also catfished, which I've already explained to you what that means. He pretended to be a 17-year-old male while talking to a 15-year-old in California, and he groomed her for future abuse. I know he has a habit of liking younger women, but I don't know how many underage girls he spoke to. I'm sure this is probably not his first. Judgmental as fuck moment right now. If you look at this picture of him that I'm sure I'm showing right now, creepy vibes coming all up off of this motherfucker, right? He just seems so creepy to me. And I don't know if that's because I know what he was, but I don't think so. Because as soon as I seen a picture, I was like, oh yeah, definitely fucking creep, pervert. I do know that in 2016, he had some mental issues going on because his girlfriend at that time and him had issues. And so he's at his dad's house and supposedly drank 2 beers. You know, everybody, when they tell the cops how many they drank, it's always 2 beers. But supposedly, according to police report, he had 2 beers and he lost his shit. Got suicidal and angry about women in general. He cut himself. His dad had to subdue him, and he called the authorities. And when he was in custody, after fighting the authorities and trying not to, he almost got shot that day. He tried really hard not to get put into custody, but he had stated that he was going to kill his dad for turning him in. His mental status, they had to hold him on a watch for a little while, and then they ended up releasing him, and nothing else has been stated about his psychological issues. However, something that scares the shit out of me is that after that time, he was hired on as a police officer. He was hired on twice as a police officer. One county job, and then he quit that, and he had been approximately 2 weeks working as a police officer for another county in Virginia. And when questioned about how he managed to pass the background check with this incident from 2016, they cited human error. They said he passed his psychological exam and he passed the lie detector test that they have to take. However, the background check never was done. So he was given a weapon and a car and a badge and a uniform and was on duty. He had 3 days off. He took that 3 days off, and he told his friends that he was going to drive out to California to propose to this longtime online girlfriend that he had never seen in person. His friends believed that that's where he was headed. He had also 2 weeks prior bought a house for asking price $79,900, sight unseen. As long as it had a basement, he was happy. He didn't even want a tour of it when he bought it. He just wanted to be left alone. And what did he do? He took the darkest car tint, window tint that he could buy and tinted all the windows so nobody could see inside of the house, which tells me he was not planning on bringing his longtime girlfriend to that house, but instead the 15-year-old that he was catfishing, and you will see why in a second. So he goes to California. He drives to California, and he does visit with his longtime girlfriend, although that visit was never really explained. Like, did he propose? How long was he there? None of that is made public yet. And then he went from there, he went to the 15-year-old's house, uninvited, and more than likely she had no idea he was even coming. He parked in the neighbor's driveway and got out of the car and walked over to the 15-year-old's house. Now, the lady whose driveway he was in came out, seen the car that didn't belong there, and called the police and let them know that there was a unknown car, a car that didn't belong there in her driveway. And this isn't an emergency call, so obviously they didn't race right over, but she was keeping pretty close tabs on what was going on once she seen that car in her driveway, because she probably thought she was about to get robbed or there was somebody lurking around her property. So what happened was he went over next door. Unfortunately, the 15-year-old was home. Fortunately, her little sister was not home. However, her mother and her grandparents were home. And her mother and her grandparents were murdered by Austin Lee Edwards, and then she was taken. The 15-year-old was taken. She was walked back to his car. The neighbor comes outside and sees that he is putting this 15-year-old in his car. She seems distressed. She's not wearing pants or shoes, according to the neighbor. And she yells out at him, "You can't park here." And he apologized, got in the car, and left. As he was leaving, she took down the Virginia license plate number on the car and called the police again to let them know what had just transpired. Right after she hung up that call, she realized the neighbor's house was on fire, so she called back 911 again and let them know about the fire. Other calls were coming in about the fire. The fire department shows up, puts the fire out. It hadn't gotten to be an extreme fire yet, thank goodness. And just inside the door, the front door, they found 3 bodies. The bodies of the 15-year-old's mother and grandparents. The mother's name was Brooke Weineck Hoff. She was 38 years old. The grandmother was Sherry Weineck. She was 65, and grandpa was Mark Weineck, 69. They were removed from the house and put outside of the house. There was another neighbor who talked to news reporters and stated that he was in his window with binoculars, that typical nosy neighbor who's got to know everything. Well, I'm kind of glad he did, because otherwise, even less information would be out there right now, because it's been hush hush ever since. But he said that all three bodies, they were not charred, and they were all three hogtied, tied up, each one of them. So he had obviously tied them up, murdered them, and drug them to the front door before setting the house ablaze and stealing the 15-year-old child. Because the neighbor whose driveway he parked in got the license plate information, police were able to come up with the owner of that vehicle as being Austin Lee Edwards, and they had his phone number, so they were able to ping where his phone was and trace his location. They were able to catch up with him, and they were able to run him off the road. Now, during the chase, I guess there was some shooting back and forth, or at least Austin Edwards was shooting at the police, some reports say. When he was run off the road, they continued the shootout. Apparently, he got out of the vehicle, and this is where stories get a little bit jumbled. There's stories that say that he was aiming his weapon at a police helicopter above, and SWAT team on the ground shot and killed him. There's another report that states that he got into a shootout with SWAT when he got out of the car, and that SWAT took him down. And then a couple of weeks later, it came out that no, the police didn't kill him. He killed himself with his police-issued weapon during a shootout with SWAT. Whatever the case, the motherfucker's dead. The 15-year-old was taken into police protective custody, uninjured physically anyways, and is receiving supposedly the best mental health care for the trauma that she has been through, and her identity obviously is being withheld because she is underage. And I was able to get pictures of her and her sister. I have the child's name. I decided that I am not going to post it. At first I thought, let me be a major sleuth or whatever and come up with some of this information, but I feel like she's been through enough. So I refuse. I can't post it. However, I am posting pictures of her mother and grandparents, because their pictures are already all over the internet, so it's not something each of you would be able to find on your own, or wouldn't be able to. So yeah, I have no problems posting that. We've got there's a GoFundMe for the family, and before I tell you about that, I want to read this that was posted on Facebook from a relative, and then I will give you the link to the GoFundMe in the description box of this video, so that if you decide that you would like to donate to their family, every little bit counts. Okay, so let me read this to you real quick. Quote: "My family suffered an unimaginable tragedy this week that senselessly claimed the lives of my godfather, Uncle Mark, my Aunt Sherry, and my cousin Brooke. There are so many questions and so few answers. My Uncle Mark was an avid Notre Dame, Packer, and Angel fan. He never faulted me despite wearing Dodger blue in the spring and attending the university of a hated rival. He gave the best hugs that always made me feel like everything was all right. My Aunt Sherry was the most tirelessly selfless person. Very few rival her devotion to her family and level of altruism. My cousin Brooke and I frequently mixed like oil and water when we were younger, but we were always excited to see one another at Nanny and Pom Pom's house. She was a loving mother and a caring aunt. Several burdens have been forced upon my cousin Shelley Wyneck Blandon and her husband Benjamin Blandon, not the least of which is planning services to honor these three beautiful souls. If there's anything that you can spare to help ease the financial strain, it would be greatly appreciated, unquote. Again, the GoFundMe link is in the description box of this video. Now I'd like to tell you some short stories, some more true story examples of catfishing, just to kind of give you a better idea of what can happen when catfishing is happening. Not all are as extreme. Some may make you chuckle, but every one of them is serious and every one of them actually happened. So ridiculous as it may sound, these things do happen, and they happen more often than you really think. So there's this guy, and he was online looking for love, and he was catfished by somebody who was in another country but posed as a swimsuit model. After getting swindled for a lot of money, he wanted to, actually, he didn't think he was swindled at first. After putting out a lot of money, he wanted to meet her. Then poof, she was disappeared, and he realized he had been swindled for a lot of money, and he wanted revenge. Because he couldn't get revenge on the actual person who conned him, he decided he was going to go ahead and kill the woman in the picture, the woman who had nothing to do with it. Okay, so the person who was doing the catfishing took this model's picture and pretended to be her, and the guy who was swindled figured out who this model was and made a plot to kill her. Luckily, police were able to stop him in time, but that could have been a much worse ending. So grown-ups are conned by catfishers as well. This isn't just a teenage thing who kids being duped by predators. This is, everybody can fall for this. A woman named Sarah, whose last name I'm not going to give, had shared online that she had a long distance relationship with an Italian businessman who was based in Africa and needed money because his passport wasn't working out, and he couldn't get a flight to come meet her. She was in love, and they never met in person, not even on video chat, because for some reason Africa doesn't have cameras. I don't know, but she has wired him over 18 months over $1 million worth of cash and phone cards and items to help him get through video games and cell phones and you name it. She even went on the Dr. Phil show, and she shared to Dr. Phil that every time her boyfriend makes attempts to come visit her in the U.S., they throw him in jail for different various reasons. And she even sends money to help bail him out. She sends him money to bail him out. How does he get it if he's in jail? I'm just curious. But anyways, Dr. Phil let her know, dude's a fake. She's been scammed. She needs to move on. And even at the very end of the show, after all the proof has been shown to her, okay, she stated that she is 95% sure that the whole thing is not a scam and that they are bound and determined to get married someday. There have been numerous people that I've known who have sent money to military personnel who are overseas, supposedly needed a place to stay or couldn't get a ride back home, needed a plane ticket, they needed money for this, that, and the other. They could never seem to talk on video chat, possibly over the phone, but that's pretty rare. It's usually just in messages. You might be able to talk to them on the phone, but you'll never get to see their actual face except for in photographs that they send you that they took off the internet or from a family member, who knows. And these people are getting money sent to them from multiple people at once. These people are not in the military. If you are talking to somebody who is in the military and they tell you that they are on active duty and they cannot get home because they need a plane ticket, they are bullshitting you. Please don't fall for it. They are paid, they eat fine, sorry about my cat acting like my room is her personal jungle gym, but anyways, if they can call you on a regular phone, if they have dating websites and social media and can talk to you, they can hit the video button just like anybody else. If they're not willing to video chat you, chances are they're full of shit and they're scamming you. Don't fall for it. Just don't. I also read another story online about this lady who was a bored housewife who took her daughter, she had a teenage daughter, her picture. Her daughter was gorgeous and she was just a frumpy lady in her 40s and bored. So she took her gorgeous daughter's photo and she made an account saying that she was her daughter, her teenage daughter. And she was talking to this guy. Well, this guy she thought was a teenage boy, but he was actually in his 40s and he was a catfish too. He was catfishing, but then he started to fall in love with this lady. And so he came out to her and said, I got to be honest here. I'm not how old I said I was. I'm actually in my 40s, whatever. And this is after months of talking to her. Now, she didn't say, hey, I was catfishing you too. No, she acted all offended. How dare you lie to me now because I can't trust you. We can't talk anymore. But this is after he had introduced her to friends of his as well. And they did like 3-way chats and all this stuff. So she starts talking to his friend more. And he is getting jealous. He's mad because, okay, now the girl that he fell in love with, who's no longer talking to her, is talking to his friend. Now the friend is still thinking that he's talking to a young woman who is in the picture and he's still being catfished by this lady. Now, the man who was the catfish, who she stopped talking to, ended up shooting and murdering his friend long distance with a rifle. While he was sat in his car, he shot him because he was jealous. Come to find out, and yes, he's doing prison time, but come to find out that they were fighting over, and he killed somebody over somebody who wasn't real. Now that lady was found out. There were no charges brought against her, by the way. Nothing legally happened to this woman when it was all found out that she was a catfish. However, her teenage daughter and husband no longer speak to her and are not in her life anymore. So she lost her family over this. And a man got killed over this game that she was playing online. Like, get The Sims or something. I don't get it. Another story that I just read on a news site online was about this lady in Michigan who's just been charged for cyberbullying, but she was catfishing. It turns out she was cyberbullying her own child and her boyfriend. Reports and complaints went to the school. The school is trying to figure out who is cyberbullying because that is a crime. And the FBI even got brought into it. It was that bad. There were thousands of pages of bullying and tormenting. And it turned out that when the FBI got into it, it all originated back to her mom's house. Her own mother was pretending to be a teenager and cyberbullying this girl. Do you know how there are so many people, teenagers, that drop out of school, commit suicide, just have horrible self-esteem because of cyberbullying, people bullying each other online, and for a mom, thousands of pages, over a year's worth of bullying. I'm glad she's facing criminal charges. Let me just say that. I can go on and on and on for days and weeks about all the different catfishing stories that are out there. There's so many. Just Google catfishing stories, catfishing crimes, catfishing murders, and you will find page after page after page of stories of being scammed and how it affects some people, the different crimes of it, some that are not crimes, some that are just emotionally draining. Like the fact that you are putting all your trust and faith into somebody you've never met, knowing that these people are out there. You have got to be more vigilant. You've got to be more self-protective and protective of your family. People, you may be locking your doors and windows at night to keep the strangers out, and they're walking right in through your computer screens, right in through your cell phones. They're right with your kids. They're right next to you, and you don't even see them there. It's really hard to fight people off when they're coming in from every angle and you don't even know that they're there. I hope that this gives you a little bit of insight on what is possible, what is happening, what can be happening in your own home. Stay vigilant. Protect your family. Protect yourselves. Till I see you next time. Y'all stay safe out there.